All right, time now for From the Slot. It's the Halloween edition. Frankie Corrado, Bryan Hayes in studio. Guys, I'm going to ask a question, then we're going to hit the slot machine, and it's up to you guys to pick a side. It's Halloween, so let's start with something a little bit scary. Which franchise is more haunted by ghosts of their past? Is it the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Dallas Cowboys, Brian?
This is a good one, Gino, but I'm going to go with the Maple Leafs on this because the Cowboys did win multiple Super Bowls 30 years ago, where the Leafs, we know the date.
For you to say this.
It's taken a long time, right? It's taken a long time, and both franchises have had dark periods. Both franchises have massive fan bases, probably the biggest media conglomerates chasing them down, constantly looking for different angles. But when it comes to ghosts and a long history of some scary stories, I'm going to go with the Maple Leafs on this.
I'm going to go with the Maple Leafs as well, and I think one player really embodies that the most, and that is Phil Kessel, who was the star player of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Big things were expected from him and the team. He leaves, and he wins 3 Stanley Cups after being a Maple Leaf, and we've seen that happen in the past. It has to be the Maple Leafs.
He came back to haunt them, just to rub those numbers back in a little bit. Now, the Dallas Cowboys, last Super Bowl came 1996. The Leafs drought, obviously much worse, not since 1967. The last year, the league still had the original 6 teams.
Gino, we get it. We understand.
Enough on that?
We got
Time to move on. Next
you.
up, who is the most deserving to wear a Captain America costume? Is it Austin Matthews or Jack Hughes, Frankie?
There really is no wrong answer here, but I'm going to say Jack Hughes, and just for the reason that Austin Matthews chose to go play in Europe before starting in the NHL, not playing for the National Team Development Program as an under-18 player. That program means a lot to American players. Jack Hughes chose to play there, so for me, I would give him the Captain America costume.
It's interesting you say that because the Hughes boys played a lot in the Greater Toronto Hockey League as well, right? It's not like they were in the States their whole lives and growing up and getting to the NHL. I'm going to go with Austin Matthews here, though, because he's got a heart. He's got rockets. He's an older player. I think if we had a best-on-best tournament tonight, Austin Matthews would be the first-line center. Jack Hughes would be the second-line center. I think in terms of captaincy, leadership, they're both growing in that direction. But Matthews just a little bit further ahead. Being the elder statesman, I think he gets first pick. I'll go with Austin Matthews.
For the record, FanDuel has Jack Hughes second in Hart Trophy odds at plus 400. Matthews is third at plus 700. Okay, one more. Who's had a more nightmarish start in their new home? Your choices? Hayes, this is going to ring true for you again. Is it Kyle Dubas or Ryan Huska?
I think it's Kyle Dubas because Dubas could have stayed in Toronto.
Or it is?
No, listen, I like Kyle. I thought he did a good job during the offseason. I really did. And listen, he's moved up. He went from GM to now president of hockey operations and GM because he chose himself when he was pursuing a new GM. But he had high expectations in Pittsburgh because of what he inherited with Sid, with Gino, with Letang. They make that Carlson deal. Erik Karlsson has not looked like himself yet in Pittsburgh. They're finding ways to lose. Yes, it's been ugly in Calgary, but Huska's new on the job. I still think he's pretty happy to have the job. Dubas chose this job. He left Toronto for Pittsburgh, and it has been an ugly start.
I'm going to go with Ryan Huska based on the fact that we know in Pittsburgh a rebuild is coming. Whether it was going to be this year or a few years down the road, that was coming. So for Kyle Dubas to push his chips all in and say, we're going to give this one last shot for a couple more years, I think it was expected. If things weren't going to go well, the rebuild was coming. For Calgary, they've had a lot of money tied up in some players now that they're going to be attached to for a long time. What are they going to do about that? And things don't look like they're going in the right direction in Calgary. I could see some dark days ahead for them. Pittsburgh, we know it's coming.
A very scary time. One thing we can all agree on, both the Pens and Flames have been downright ghoulish. That's it for this. I'm sorry, it was too easy. This Halloween edition of From the Slot.